Yeah.
Okay, so say that with Mr. Webb as mayor, or in me as town council. Yes, because you did it last time. You did it last time. I'm gonna probably mess it up. I probably will now.
All right. Don't turn that down or up.
It's making the furnace.
Oh. I was gonna say.
I think it's frozen.
It's a scorcher in here.
Oh, it froze. Oh, really?
It's gonna get hotter then.
Never mind.
All right. Well, I guess it's time. Can everybody hear me okay? Mic on and all that? Thumbs in the back? Excellent. Can you hear me? No? Yes? Maybe so? All right, good. I'm seeing some nods back there, so I think we're okay. We won't call Virginia out or anything, but can you hear me, Virginia? Okay, good. So I'd like to welcome everybody to the regularly scheduled Monday, May the 3rd council meeting. It's an exciting time for the council. You'll have to bear with me. I can't talk through the masks the entire time. But welcome, everybody. I will make a note that there will be an opportunity during the meeting for citizens to address the town council when the mayor declares public comments open. We request that anyone addressing the council sign up, approach the podium when called, state your first and last name, and provide your complete mailing address. So without further ado, Kim, if you'll call the roll.
Mr. Owens.
Here.
Mr. Henderson.
Present.
Ms. Pillion.
Here.
Ms. Quetch.
Here.
And Mayor Webb.
Here. Again, welcome everybody. At this time, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance, and I will take lead in that if you don't mind. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, that brings us to item D, the approval of the agenda. Council, I don't know of any items that I want to agenda. If you guys don't have any changes you want to make, then I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as it is.
I'll make some motion.
Motion by Mr. Anderson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Mayor Quetch. Any discussion, council? Hearing none, Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Owens.
Here. Aye.
Mr. Anderson.
Aye.
Ms. Quetch.
Aye.
Ms. Pillion.
Aye.
And Mayor Webb.
Aye. All right, that brings us to public comments. We do have one member of the audience signed up for public comments. That's Mr. Emmett Urey, if you'll approach the council. And I would like to remind everybody, we limit public comments to 3 minutes, if you don't mind. That's not a problem, not a problem.
I take it, stating my name and all is not part of the 3 minutes, I hope,
No, it's not, absolutely not.
because I talk a little slow. I'm
That's
from the
okay.
south. Okay. My name is Emmett Urey, 171 East Main Street, Abingdon, Virginia. Ready to go?
Sure.
In 2 short years, Abingdon has gone from being one of the crown jewels of Virginia and small towns of America to now verging on becoming a pitiful shell of what it once was, and may soon qualify for the Guinness Book of Records to have more lawsuits filed against it than any other small town in America. This situation is far from laughable and is in fact deplorable, since many of the events that have brought us to this status are inexcusable and cannot and should not be blamed on COVID, but instead a growing cancer of tyrannical misuse and abuse of power by the town administration. In the last 2 years, this town's government has become a runaway train going off the tracks with no real engineer at the throttle and no brakemen or conductors aboard exercising any control. In your meeting of April the 5th, a consultant talked about a comprehensive plan that would involve certain stakeholders. I would suggest, however, we would be better served to use such terms as citizens or we the people. These are words that you should be proud to utter, because we were able to do so only because thousands of citizens have given their lives for our many freedoms, which we can never and should never take for granted. You would be better to ask for the input and the collective wisdom of all the citizens, and not just a privileged few or those who you may deem special stakeholders. Above all else, you should ask, what is at stake? Now, just what is at stake here? Well, just some of the things that are now at stake and we are in danger of losing in Abingdon are a quality of life that has made Abingdon a great place to live and visit, freedom of speech, freedom of association, truth and intolerance for disingenuous and deceitful liars in our town's government and management. Town council's legal and moral duty: do not be complicit nor condone or aid and abet inappropriate, wrongful, and illegal conduct of any town officials. A hostility-free work environment for town employees where they are not subjected to humiliation and maniacal and tyrannical behavior and outburst. Where employees are not fired because they are obeying the law, not disobeying the laws and ordinances of this town. A workplace where employees do not have to be obsequious and sad sycophants and bootlickers or suffer in silence for fear of the loss of their jobs and the welfare of their families. The town's support of tourism programs and numerous civic
Mr. Yuri,
programs.
I'm gonna have to cut you off. That was the 3 minutes. If you can wrap it up in 5 seconds or less.
Oh, I will, if I may just, I will wrap it up. The town's support of tourism programs and numerous civic programs and activities such as Memorial Day, Veterans Day, and
Mr. Yuri,
grounds.
3 minutes is up. I'm gonna have to ask you to move on.
All right, so well, if I would, I'll place the last comments. Our freedoms, our dignity, and the reputation and integrity of
Yuri.
Abingdon are all at stake. And so you will know what I was
Okay,
going to say. I will
we're
provide
moving
you a
on.
copy and ask that you make this part of the record so the public can see, so we can have real freedom of speech.
Okay. So that concludes the public comments. We're gonna move on to the approval of the minutes. And council, if you don't have any changes to the approval of the minutes, we can adopt the April the 5th and the 22nd minutes at the same time.
Yes, sir.
I would entertain a motion to do so if the council, is that your pleasure?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Ms. Pillion to approve both sets of minutes? I see.
Yes,
Okay.
both sets
Do
of
I have a
minutes.
second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Anderson. I think he beat you to the punch there, Vice Mayor. Any discussion, council? Hearing none, Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Owens?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Ms. Pillion?
Aye.
Ms. Quetch?
Aye.
And Mayor Webb?
Aye. All right. And that brings us to a very exciting time in the agenda, which are the proclamations, of which we actually have 4 tonight. But so that we don't keep the state champion golf team here for forever, we're gonna put you guys first in line. And like I said, guys, I say this all the time, but out of all the things we get to do as a council, recognizing our youth is one of my very favorite. You guys are the future. You never know, one of you all, or more than one of you guys, could be sitting in these very seats in not so long. You just never know. But we're very, very proud of you all. I'd also like to put a shout out to the coaches. You guys have done a fantastic job. I had a conversation with the superintendent earlier this week, or I guess it was last week now. And one of the comments I made to him is that we're creating a lot of chatter among other communities. One of which is very close by, and one of the former superintendents reached out to me and just said, somebody in Abingdon is doing the right things to create these championship teams. You know, obviously you guys are the first state champions we've had this year, and we're very proud of that. Is this number 5? Is that what I understand, Coach
5
Dale?
for the school year.
Yeah, which is just incredible. I mean, we're on the verge of a dynasty. Do we have any seniors at all on the team? Just 2? Okay. Which means that we've got the majority of the team coming back next year, which is just incredibly exciting. You know, again, we're gonna read this proclamation. You guys deserve all the honor and the praise. It's just fantastic what you've accomplished so far. We're excited about what you're gonna accomplish in the near future. This is just one of the best things we get to do as a council. And I'm gonna have Ms. Pillion read that proclamation, because she knows most of you guys individually, and I just think it would be special for her to do so.
So, proclamation on the occasion to honor and recognize the Abingdon High School Golf Team 2021 Class 3A State Champions. Whereas the town of Abingdon wishes to honor and recognize the Abingdon High School Golf Team comprised of 6 members, the team's manager and coaches. Whereas the commitment required for student athletes to be part of a sports team includes meeting required grade, attendance, and volunteer requirements, in addition to attending daily practices and scheduled competition events. And whereas on April 19th, 2021, the Abingdon High School Golf Team competed in the Class 3A State Championship at Glenrokee Country Club in Abingdon, Virginia. And whereas Abingdon played a remarkable tournament with an 18-hole total of 307, defending the state title, marking the 5th state championship in program history won by the Abingdon High School Golf Team. And those include 2000, 2015, 2017, 2018, and 2021. And now therefore, by the virtue of the authority invested in Mayor Webb, and on behalf of the Abingdon Town Council and citizens, I hereby applaud the commitment of the Abingdon High School Golf Team and proclaim May 3rd, 2021 as Abingdon High School Golf Team Day in the town of Abingdon. Congratulations.
Congratulations. We do have a small token of our appreciation, just to show you guys some support, guys and gals, I should say that loosely. And I think Ms. Billion's going to read off the names if you'll come when your name is read.
Will Watson,
Come on down. I'm not allowed to shake hands, so. But congratulations.
Mr. Watson,
Yes.
if you will stand up here,
We're going to do a picture in just a moment if you'll move on down to the end there.
Caleb Brummett, Grace Addison, Katie Hull,
Hey, neighbor. Congratulations.
Mason Funk, Dalton Minnick, Sam Sutherland,
Jeez. Oh, wow.
Marcus Devon, Coach Jason Delp,
There's my cousin. Come on down. I think we set the room on fire. This team's so hot. Woo! I feel something burning. Woo! Man. I know, right?
Coach Nick Vyers,
And my signature hasn't gotten any better since I had your class.
No,
so
no, it's
just
the
say
same
that.
thing. It's on my, what year was it? About 01?
2001. Congratulations, my friend.
and Coach Kenny Schweitzer.
like I said before, you all, I mean, seriously, the hard work you guys have put in is just incredible. You should be very, very proud. And I know the town is just super stoked for you. And the coaches, I mean, seriously, I can't go without recognizing how much effort it takes to really get a team into shape to win a state championship. So just congratulations again. We'll with your pictures if you guys don't mind.
Guys, if we can get maybe 2 rows. I'm sorry. Let me grab one and then can we get some of the, come in, just take a front for the
I
guys?
didn't know girls' team was that hot.
And the rest of you kind of stick on the
May
back
not
row.
still be tall enough.
Yeah. Y'all set this room on fire. Jeez. I love to take masks off pictures. It's terrible.
Too cool for school.
I need a box to stand
Stand on your chair.
I need a box to stand up.
Johnny needs a box.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, guys.
Hey, Wade, can we take our mask out?
And hold your spots from here.
I probably can't authorize that because I could be the impetus for a, flare. I know, I apologize. Thank you all again for coming out. And congratulations.
Congratulations.
Good job.
I'm so proud of you. Thanks, Chris. I'm sorry for divulging the secret that we're cousins.
That's okay, that's okay.
Congratulations again. That's it. Thank y'all. Yeah, it may be to our benefit if you guys wanna take a quick 5 minutes to see if they can figure out why we're on fire now.
Okay.
Smell smoke.
Yeah, it's smoking. It's smoking.
I don't really see it.
So why doesn't somebody move to recess?
Yeah.
I'll move to take a recess.
All right, got a motion to take a recess. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Kim, if you please call the roll.
Mr. Owens. Aye. Mr. Anderson.
Aye.
Ms. Pillion.
Aye.
Ms. Quetch.
Aye.
And Mayor Webb.
Aye. We're gonna take about a 5-minute recess or so to see if they can't figure out why it's on fire.
No, it was like between 2 and 3.
Was it that late?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when I got, mine never went out.
And it
All
was-
right.
I got a message from AP saying it
So-
was going to.
Since we've got a lengthy agenda, we'll get back at it. It may get hot in here quickly, so I would entertain a motion to come back into session.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Owens to come back into to session, a second by Vice Mayor Quetch. Any discussion, council? Hearing none, Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Owens?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Ms. Pillion?
Aye.
Ms. Quetch? Aye. And Mayor Webb?
Aye. That brings us, we're still under proclamations, that brings us to the second one, for proclamation designating May 2021 as Small Business Appreciation Month. And before I have Vice Mayor Quetch read that, I would like to ask Tanya, do you have any words you'd like to say, Tanya, for the small businesses? I know you work very diligently to make sure they survive and thrive, so.
Thank you. In honor of small businesses, we did the Best of Abingdon 2021 again this year, so we will be out this week giving those awards out. We have 30 of those awards, so very excited about that. So thank you for the proclamation, and feel free to join us throughout the week if you can.
I'm sure some of us will be out there with you whenever we can. So thank you for what you do for the town.
Thank
Yes,
you.
Absolutely. Vice Mayor Quetch, if you'd like to read that for us.
Yes, proclamation designating May 2021 as Small Business Appreciation Month. Whereas Abingdon businesses play essential roles in strengthening our community through innovation, creation, expansion, and employing a workforce that preserves the economic well-being and quality of life for all our citizens. And whereas Abingdon businesses operate in diverse industries, including manufacturing, services, retail, tourism, agribusiness, and information technology. And whereas the town of Abingdon is pleased to recognize the accomplishments of our existing businesses, entrepreneurs, small, minority, and women-owned businesses, and the major employees that contribute significantly to the economic recovery of our region. And whereas it is fitting to offer the citizens of our community a unique opportunity to recognize Abingdon businesses for the essential role they play in driving the new and diverse economy. Now therefore, be it resolved, I acknowledge the importance of businesses and the numerous contributions they make in our community. Recognize May 2021 as Small Business Appreciation Month in the town of Abingdon.
Thank you, Donna. And just as a side note, we are very proud of the small businesses and what they've been able to do through the pandemic. I think while many other communities have suffered greatly, and we are no different than those, we have actually had, I believe it, Tanya, correct me if I'm wrong, was it 12 businesses open during the 15 businesses open during the pandemic. So we're very proud of what we've been able to accomplish, and it's pretty exciting times for Abingdon, it really is. That brings us to number 3 under proclamations, a proclamation designating May 9th through the 15th, 2021 as Virginia Police Week and Peace Officers Memorial Day. I think we have some officers in the room as well. We'd like to recognize those guys and gals if there are any. John, did you have something you'd like to say before we read the proclamation, or after, or come forward for a picture, or?
We'll come forward first.
All right, well, let us read the proclamation first then, okay? Mr. Owens is gonna do that.
Okay, I'd like to make a proclamation that designating May 9th, 15th, May 9th through the 15th, 2021 as Virginia Police Week and Police Officers Memorial Day. Whereas in 1962, President John F. Kennedy signed the first proclamation recognizing May 15th as Police Officers Memorial Day and the week in which it falls as National Police Week. And whereas police officers throughout our Commonwealth work tirelessly to protect and to serve across the Commonwealth, to enforce our laws and keep our neighborhoods, schools, and families safe. And whereas police officers report for duty aware of their sacrifices they may be called upon to make and risk their lives each and every day in order to safeguard the public and enforce the laws of the Commonwealth. And whereas we reflect upon the selfless dedication and bravery of our local, state, and other police sector other public sector police as our safety and well-being is promoted by their devotion to maintaining peace and security in our communities. And whereas Virginia Police Week and Peace Officers Memorial Day are opportunities to honor officers who have fallen in the line of duty and recognize the sacrifices made by their families of those officers and families of those who continue to protect and serve our communities. Now therefore, the council and Derek Webb, Mayor, do hereby recognize on May 15th, 9 through the 15th, as Virginia Police Week and May 15th, 2021 as Police Officers Memorial Day in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and call the observances to the attention of all of our citizens.
Come on up, gentlemen. While you're coming up, I would like to say, again, thank you for all your hard work and dedication. You certainly make me feel safer when you come through my neighborhood, and I know you guys work very diligently to protect everybody in the community, and right now is a difficult time for lots of communities with regards to police criticism, and I certainly want to say that I appreciate what you all do, and I think the rest of the council agrees.
Yeah, I'd like to add that it was probably roughly a year ago or less that I really got to see how all of you guys work together, the state, town and county police, trying to find a fugitive that was in my neighborhood for 10, 12 hours probably. It was pretty amazing operation that I saw there, so thank you very much for what you do.
Thank you, guys. Come on up, let's have a picture. Yeah, and maybe a fist bump.
I'm glad y'all didn't think
Thank
about
you, sir.
it.
Appreciate you.
They even help people chase down ducks. Safe dash.
Smile like you mean it, right? Yeah, I'm gonna take my mask off for one.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
Yes.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
All right, and that brings us to a proclamation designating May the 3rd through the 7th, 2021 as Public Service Week. I think Mr. Anderson's gonna read that proclamation if you don't mind.
Proclamation designating May 3rd through the 7th, 2021 as Public Service Week, Stronger Together. Whereas public work professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities, and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of people in the town of Abingdon. And whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public work professionals, who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector, who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest of the citizens, civic leaders, and children in the town of Abingdon to gain knowledge of and to maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public work programs in their respective communities. And be it now resolved, I, Derek Webb, Mayor, do hereby designate the week of May 3rd through the 7th, 2021 as Public Service Week. I urge all citizens to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protect our town's health, safety, and quality of life.
And John, I see you sitting out there hoping that I'm not gonna call on you. But I have to tip my hat to you, John. You know, it's really been a pleasure watching you orchestrate the Public Works Department and our public service group. it's, you know, one of the things that makes Abingdon so beautiful are those services. And I know we don't take the time to thank you enough, for what you all do. Did you have anybody that showed up from your department, just, are you the Lone Ranger?
No, there's no one here.
Okay,
but
all right, well,
I would just like to say thanks and, on behalf of the 60-plus employees we have in Public Works. Proud of what they do, and we don't do it for accolades, so we just
Sure.
kind of try to stay quiet in the background a little bit, but, I'd also like to say that term public service to me kind of goes across all the employees we have
Sure.
in town,
Sure.
including the ones that are here right now.
sure,
So
sure.
I'd like to extend that to them as well.
I appreciate that,
We've
that makes a lot of
got a committed bunch
sense.
of people, good employees, and I enjoy working with every one of them.
Sure. Well, thank you for your hard work and dedication. Again, it's truly a pleasure, seeing those guys come through the town and clean things up and keep our town beautiful. We get so many compliments about how gorgeous Abingdon is and what great shape it's in. Not just our main street, but other streets. It's difficult to find a section of Abingdon that's not been maintained. I'm telling you, you know, I can't thank you guys enough for what you do. So thank you so much.
I'll pass that along, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Can I share a funny story? It'll be brief.
Absolutely.
Well, a neighbor of mine called me the other day, a couple weeks ago, and says, "Hey, thanks for getting that area mowed by Ball Lane." I was like, "Yeah, no problem. I didn't tell them to do it, but that's just part of their normal route."
Sure, sure.
I had to, you know, it wasn't anything
Yeah,
that I did, but I mean, the crews are out there,
that's
and
it.
we have, you know, we have had some shortages in the Parks Department, and we've had a heavy load, but we've been able to fill those positions, or in the process of filling those recently, so the mowing season is upon us, but I think everybody's picked up the weight and trying to do more with less, and I think that's evident. And of course, you know, during COVID, there were some challenges too, but
Sure, sure.
everybody's kind of stepped up, so.
Well, like I said, we appreciate what you do and just thank you for keeping the town beautiful. Thanks. All right, that moves us to petitions and public hearings, of which we have two tonight. The first on the list is a public hearing, an ordinance of the council for the town of Abingdon, Virginia, proposing a budget for the town of Abingdon, Virginia, to make appropriation for the current expenses of the town and to fix a tax rate upon real and personal property for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022. Mr. Moraney.
Oh, sorry. I wanted to make sure you were
Sir?
there. As discussed, I'm gonna take this off. As discussed at the last meeting, which our Director of Finance, Steve Trotman, presented and gave an excellent presentation. We have in ordinance form the budget, which is required to be adopted. We are required to conduct the public hearing, which is, that's what this is the public hearing. It will be, and we'll have a first reading after this, and then we'll have a second reading at the June meeting. So,
All right, fair
we
enough.
can get to any discussion if we need to on first reading. If we have to.
Excellent. So this is a public hearing, and at this time, I will open the floor. If anybody would like to speak about the proposed budget for the town of Abingdon. I don't have anybody signed up. Would anybody like to speak about the proposed budget? Okay, I'll close that public hearing then, and we'll take action upon that later in the meeting. That moves us to number 2. Which is a public hearing, proposed zoning map amendment to rezone tax map ID 02011-1, parcel consisting of 1.079 acres, more or less, located at 335 Cumming Street, Abingdon, Virginia, from R3 Residential District to O&I Office and Institutional District. Mr. Boswell.
Thank you, Mayor Webb, Honorable Council. It's a little warm in here. This public hearing is for consideration of rezoning for the property located at 335 Cumming Street, tax map ID 020-11-1, commonly known as the Hassinger property, from R3 residential to O&I office and institutional. As you recall, by resolution, due to public necessity, convenience, general welfare, and good zoning practices, the council referred this matter to the Planning Commission for consideration at the March 22nd Planning Commission meeting. The Planning Commission determined that per Virginia Code Section 15.2-2284, concerning the 9 relevant factors to be considered in a rezoning to unanimously approve the zoning map amendment. The Planning Commission discussed 4 relevant factors. The state statute only requires that it meet 1, but they discussed 4. The first relevant factor being the existing use and character of the property, determining that the current zoning of R3 residential does not allow public offices, and the current property is vacant, but the existing use is the tourism center, which by definition is a public office. I see Mr. Anderson shaking his head like, I've heard this. The second relevant factor being the comprehensive plan. Current zoning of R3 residential is inconsistent with the comprehensive plan's future land use designation as public and institutional. The third relevant factor being the suitability of the property for various uses. The current zoning allows for a limited number of permitted uses by right, predominantly residential uses. And the fourth relevant factor discussed at the meeting was the encouragement of the most appropriate use of land throughout the locality. And they felt that rezoning to O&I is a more appropriate use of the land and is consistent with the comprehensive plan. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So, they, best of my memory, they suggested unanimously to move.
That is
through
correct,
with
sir.
the rezoning, right?
Yes, sir.
Correct, Skip? Good. I don't particularly have any questions, other than, well, no, I really don't have any questions. Council, do you all have any questions for Mr. Boswell while he's up here, or
No, we've discussed it before,
multiple
so.
times? Okay, okay, fair enough. So this is a public hearing, of course, and I'll have to open the public hearing. Mr. Boswell, I don't think we have any questions for you at this time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. So I would open the public hearing with that being said. And we do have Mr. Walter Jenny signed up, if you would approach the council. I think the time limits we've used before for public hearing is 5 minutes, if you don't mind to abide by the time limit. Thank you.
Certainly, thank you. Mayor and members of the council, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Walter Jenny. I'm 16298 Highlands Log Drive in Abington, and I am president of the Historical Society of Washington County. I would encourage the council to go slow in this process of deciding to rezone this particular property. We all know the historical nature of this building, how it's iconic to both the image of Abington and also the history of Abington and the entire county, the significance of the Hassinger family. We received a phone call Saturday from one of the granddaughters of the last Hassinger to live in that house, and they were concerned about what the plans were by the town as to what to do with that particular property, since it meant so much to them. And of course, they were also owners of the land that is now part of the Veterans Park. That was also part of the original Hassinger property. The signal that it sends by changing this to office and institutional use, I realize the town considers this to be surplus property and wants to get the best value, most money out of the sale of the property as possible. But I would like the council to take a slow approach at this. It's entirely possible to sell the property, to get a bid to purchase the property, and then to consider the zoning change, to decide, to find out what the buyer wants to do with the particular property. We'd like to make sure that the building remains there, because it is so significant to the community. And by starting at an early stage by saying this is office, this is institutional, it's already zoned, green light for you to purchase it for that use, suggests to a potential buyer that the land is worth more than the building, and suggests that this would be a good opportunity to take the building down and put some office or industrial use there rather than trying to upgrade the property for one of those uses. I think the last element that Mr. Boswell mentioned talked about the best value of the land, and that's what concerns me. I think you can make this decision about zoning at a later time when you do have an offer, and then you can make clear that you want to see that the house is preserved and stays intact rather than bulldozing it to put up an office. I know you want the money, I know you want to have the revenue, but for every penny that you might gain by selling this particular property for a higher value, whatever higher value it might be, you'll probably lose 2 pennies in lost tourism interest. And that's one of our concerns, and that's what we want to protect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Don't have anybody else signed up for the public hearing. Anybody else want to speak?
I have a question.
Sure.
Just to clarify.
Hang on a second, let me close the
Okay.
public hearing, then we'll have some
Okay.
discussion. Is that procedure, okay? So if no one else is gonna speak, I will close the public hearing, and then we'll ensue with discussion, so go right ahead.
Okay, I just have a question. If I recall, the planning commission voted unanimously to restrict the destruction of the Hassinger House for a period of time, which
Correct.
might or might not have been 10 years?
That's correct.
Okay.
Ms. Pillion, not exactly sure that they have the authority to make that determination.
Okay.
But
I
the
can
town
help address-
council does.
If you don't mind me help addressing it, I'm
Because
working
that
with.
seems to be a concern, and so
Yeah, sure,
I was
sure.
trying to
It was a concern
address that
at the
concern.
planning commission level as well.
I've been
And
working
there's-
with Jason and with Cam, and we plan at the next meeting to present a draft RFP on what it would look like, and
Sure.
there are elements in there of preservation.
Right.
So I think some of the concerns have been, somebody's just gonna tear it down, we recognize those concerns. In fact, we've had, over the last several months, some discussion amongst us of how we could preserve that. Obviously, that was a position that was made clear by the planning commission, even though they couldn't make that a condition of the rezoning. We certainly are taking that into consideration. So I think when we present that at the next meeting, for discussion, I think you'll be happy with some of the elements, and I think the Historical Society will. Because, now on the zoning side, there's only so many, because of the comprehensive plan, we really, it's very difficult for us to pick and choose what the zoning can be. It really is either gonna stay the zoning it is, or it's gonna be O and I. And really, O and I is more compatible with the adjacent land uses, and it's consistent with the comprehensive plan. I don't think it will prevent, I think the RFP that we're gonna present will help alleviate any of those concerns, and I'll just leave it at that, so.
And that will be at the work
At
session?
the work, yeah, the
or-
20th, the meeting on the 20th.
Fair enough.
And that will be just for discussion before we have.
And one of the uses of right of O and I is single-family residences, so it doesn't eliminate the possibility that it be used as a residence in the future anyway. And if you recall, as Mr. Boswell said, the town has actually been using this as an office that is not properly zoned for it now, so it should have been fixed a long time ago.
I got you.
I think
That
it's
was my next
CO'd as that
question.
too. The certificate of occupancy is probably through Mr. Statzer, and I can check. But it's probably considered an office space. And even if there was, if it changed hands, private property owner decided that they wanted to demo the structure, they couldn't. They would have to get permission from the planning commission through a certificate of appropriateness to begin with.
Okay. Council, any other questions for Mr. Boswell at this point in time? Okay, I think we're good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
He's dealt with this long enough.
That's been a long process, right?
I've had several questions for him, but he answered them 3 months ago.
That's it. All right. I know we got a lengthy agenda, so we'll keep moving. We do have a resolution to consider, a resolution of the council for the town of Abingdon to dispose of certain personal property. Mr. Moran.
Yes, sir. Starting at the beginning of the year, we, as a staff, have begun to change our process and how we do special events, obviously with the shortage of resources that we have. And out of budget necessity, we are no longer holding several of the events that we normally would in previous years. And so part of that streamlining process and part of that restructuring of how we do special events is the evaluation of what type of personal property we need, since we're no longer going to be, not that the events won't happen through various sponsorships, the town is still able to provide assistance to organizations if they want to put events on, but the need for the town to possess things that would support special events like tables and tents and such didn't become necessary anymore. They're taking up space, and it's just, would be better used in the community than with the town. So that's the impetus to this. I did have discussed with Cam, and although the town manager has the authority to declare or to sell the personal property and to just dispose of them in a manner that's consistent with the state code, as a courtesy, I wanted to bring it to the council and just see if there were any questions or anything before we move forward with it. So be happy to answer any questions.
So council,
Well-
what questions?
The only thing I see is the image that the public's gonna see. First thing they're gonna, are we in that bad a shape we need to sell everything we got? You know? What about, and a lot of these things are essential for the things, events that we're gonna have after COVID. What are we gonna do when COVID's over?
Well, are you asking me, Mr. Anderson? Okay.
I don't understand the purpose of
Well, going forward, we've kind of reset and we're in a new normal now where the town had spent considerable amount of resources, staff resources and time that really just wasn't in the best interest of the taxpayers. I know that a lot of these events were very popular. Unfortunately, it was a strain on the town's budget. We were paying a lot of overtime. And we are hoping to be able to accomplish some of these things if we can sponsor some organizations that can do events. And if we're sponsoring nonprofits to do events, we as the town don't have to do them, and we don't have to have, full-time staff and have to have employees out there working on weekends and holidays to do those events. So we're probably, some of these events that we're not doing because of COVID, we're not gonna be doing in the future. Doesn't mean we won't do other events. We are still gonna
But-
do the 4th of July and some other events.
keeping in mind
Mhm.
the people. The biggest thing, now we're gonna sell these things, and these are items in which taxpayers bought.
And they got a lot of good use out of them.
Hey, well,
They did for years, yeah.
It's true.
and still,
Yeah.
it's a whole lot more good use in them.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, I don't see, I think we ought to table this before any action is done to the next meeting, because I think the people ought to have a say-so in this. You know, we need to voice some more, discussions on this.
Okay. So, council, do we have a consensus of whether we wanna move forward with this at this time, or we wanna table it, or
I think we should table it.
think we should table it? Is that something that you're okay with, Mike, or do you feel strongly either way, or?
I don't feel strongly either way. I personally feel like Jimmy does have the authority to make these decisions, and he's presented this to us, as a courtesy, and we've evaluated, we've had plenty of time to look at it.
Sure.
I personally don't think we should be in the events business. These are things that some organizations are using that we don't rent to them. It's just had thought it was a courtesy to them. But consequently, we're competing with other rental companies, other businesses in the community that rent all this equipment that we are not renting. So we are actually hurting businesses, in my opinion. So there's two ways to look at this.
Sure.
But I'm okay with we table it, discuss it next meeting, or discuss it amongst ourselves more. But
I think it should be at least to June. See, it's a lot of people, man, that have seen this, and they highly upset over it.
Okay.
Because they said, what's the next thing, we're gonna have a bake sale? To create money, good. We gotta keep in mind, people, the image that we're projecting to the people, to the public. They feel like they don't have a say-so in what's going on. And if we keep in mind,
The
who
people
put
that-
us here?
the people that have talked to me are thinking, man, I'm glad you're doing this.
Yeah.
We have spent all this money on things that most people in the community are not using.
Yeah.
So the people that are talking to me are saying, thank God you're getting rid of it and don't buy any more.
Right,
You know,
right.
So,
Well,
no, I've not had
it
anybody
depends on
negative to me.
who you ask.
Sure, sure.
You know.
I think that's fair. I mean, I think that there's certainly gonna be people on both sides. I mean, and I respect both, I really do personally respect both sides of it. I can relate to Scabo, I mean, and what you're saying. I mean, certainly we want the general public to be heard. Certainly the tax dollars paid for it to begin with, so they should have a say. At the same time, I do see, this sort of competing with private entities and rental shops and so on and so forth.
I think there are some events that are coming up that have already planned on having this equipment to use.
Sure. So my gut's telling me, the feeling I'm getting from you guys is that you wanna table it and have further discussion, so we can sort of analyze.
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Okay, do we need a motion?
I don't think you need a motion.
for-
I would.
so-
Oh, because
fair
we're on
enough.
the agenda.
And Jimmy, thanks for bringing it to us.
Yeah, and just so you know, as we've started this process, we have informed all organizations that have been applying for the special events that we are not able to, rent these or loan these out. So to this point, we have informed all the organizations of that, and we really haven't had any pushback. They understand it. And just so you know, the selling of these is not going to balance the budget. We have accumulated, we are storing items in pods at the wastewater treatment plant that we're spending tax money on, and they're just sitting there. And I think it'll be responsible for the taxpayers to just start to try to move this inventory of unused items that we have that are taking up space, so we don't have it anymore. And to put it to use, because a lot of the items that we have, and this is not necessarily these items, are just never gonna be used.
But we'll be keeping some of it.
Yeah, we're gonna
Things that
retain
we
some
need.
tables and chairs
Right.
that we will keep and retain for events that the town might need. So we're not disposing of all of them, and I've talked to staff about this, and this is the direction that we wanna go.
So in other words, we're not gonna be sponsoring no kind of events in the future.
We may be a sponsor, but we won't be the
Event crew, we won't be the event crew, which is going out and setting up the tables and the chairs, especially when it deals with private property, which I have legal concerns about. We were going on, sometimes we go on private property, which is, that process has been stopped. We need to stay on town property or right away and not go on private property to do these things.
I will say an interesting side note, this does sort of apply to this, but not exactly. Is at one point in time, if my memory serves me correctly, and I'm pretty good with numbers, we were paying something like $7,000 or $8,000 a year for storage.
We're paying a couple $1,000s right now, a year in storage.
Just for storage, just as a side note. But again,
Like a man.
for this particular issue, I think we wanna table it, Jimmy, if that's okay.
Yeah, we can bring it up at the next meeting,
Bring
I'd
it
be
up at
happy
the work session.
to bring it
Amanda
back.
has
And this may not be, I feel like at some point that I was in a meeting and we had a discussion about stage setup, and that presently there is a great deal of liability when a stage is set up, that you have to have a certain crew to set up the stage, or there's a large liability on the event holder, and so that.
Yeah, we don't wanna have that liability of setting
Right.
up a stage,
Stage collapse.
I think it's
It's
like you
not.
have to have a
Even
certified
with-
stage person to set up the stage,
certain
because
size, yeah.
if a group of people were on the stage and the stage were to collapse, then there's a great deal of liability. And so the way I understood it is now it is very expensive to have somebody come in and set up a stage for you because of that liability. And if the town owns the stage and doesn't have the certification and sets it up, then that puts the town at a liability risk.
That's good.
And I will say that an event that I'm currently involved in planning, I have been told, no, we don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
So it applies to everyone, including town council members. If it's
We're just trying to
new
be fair.
policies across the board.
We're just trying to be fair across the board and to limit the liability and the expenses to the town.
I see your point, Scabo, but we're actually gonna be saving money in the long run, versus keeping this.
Well, I mean, maybe, like I said, maybe with a couple of weeks, we'll have some time to digest, and maybe we'll all feel a little better about making a decision at that point in time, so we'll officially table and we'll move
Well,
on.
let's move in second and vote on that,
Oh,
since we
okay,
didn't
all
have
right.
the agenda.
So I'd entertain a motion to table it,
I make a motion that we table this until
May 20th,
the work session?
yeah,
Okay.
May 20th.
All
to
right.
May 20th meeting.
So,
It may take longer.
well, sure, we can talk about it then, we don't have to take action at that point in time, but motion to table it to the
I'll second
work
that.
session, by Mr. Owens, a second by Vice Mayor Quetch. Any discussion, council? Hearing none, Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Owens,
Aye.
Mr. Anderson.
Aye.
Ms. Gillian,
Aye.
Ms. Quetch.
Aye.
Mayor White.
Aye. That brings us to first reading of ordinances. We have two of. The first one is an ordinance of the council for the town of Abingdon, Virginia, proposing a budget for the town of Abingdon, Virginia, to make an appropriation for the current expenses of the town and to fix a tax rate upon real and personal property for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022. Council, I know we had some discussion about this earlier. Do we have any more discussion, or do you want me to go ahead and put it out on the table, or? Okay. So I think procedurally, the way we've got to handle it is I have to ask, shall this motion be rejected? And all I'm hearing is crickets, so that means, Cam, it will move to the second reading, correct? Okay, all right. So that will move right along. Number 2, we have a proposed zoning map amendment to rezone tax map ID 020111 parcel consisting of 1.079 acres, more or less, located at 335 Cummings Street, Abingdon, Virginia, from R3 Residential District to O&I Office and Institutional District. Council, I know we've been talking about this for 3 or 4 months at this point in time. Do we want to move it on to a second reading, or do we want to dispose of the second reading and take action? I'll open up the floor for a motion.
I'm like Scabo, we've been kicking this down the road for too long. So I'd like to move to adopt the ordinance and waive the second reading.
Okay. So we've got a motion by Mr. Owens to adopt the ordinance as presented and waive the second reading. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
A second by Ms. Pillion. Council, do we have any other discussion tonight? Hearing none, Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Owens?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Ms. Pillion?
Aye.
Ms. Quetch?
Aye.
And Mayor Webb?
Aye. All right, that brings us to second readings of ordinances. We do have one. The proposed amendment to Part 2 of the Code, Chapter 14, Buildings and Building Regulations, Article 3, Spot Blight Abatement, Section 1456-2, pursuant to Code of Virginia 1950 as amended, Sections 15.2, -1425, 15.2-1429, and 3649.11. Mr. Boswell, you're on the hot seat again. That's it. Literally.
Thank you again, Mayor Webb and Honorable Council. This is the second reading concerning the proposed amendment to the language of Article 3, Spot Blight Abatement, Section 14-56, Recovery of Costs and Lien on Property, subsection B, Lien on Property. Again, it's just a house cleaning issue. This issue was discussed at the April 5th council meeting concerning the proposed new language that would state the town may assess and recover against the owner of blighted property all costs, including an administrative fee of $100, that it expends or incurs in repairing the property to bring it into compliance with applicable building codes and/or for all costs expended or incurred in the disposal of the property under the town council's approved plan.
I know we had some pretty extensive discussion about it last time and kind of where it came from and what we were doing. And it was really just some verbiage that we were cleaning up and just standardizing the fee, I believe. Is that right, Mr.
That's correct.
Boswell?
Yes.
So I personally don't have any issues with it. I'm ready for action. Council, do y'all have any more questions for Mr. Boswell? Okay, all right. Hearing no questions, I would entertain a motion to approve that second reading of the ordinance as stated.
To adopt the ordinance.
Adopt, I apologize, Cam
Sir.
Peace McLean, to adopt the ordinance as stated.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Vice Mayor Quetch to adopt the ordinance as it is stated in the packet. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Owens. Any discussion, council? Hearing none, Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Owens?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Ms. Pillion?
Aye.
Ms. Quetch?
Aye.
And Mayor Webb?
Aye.
Thank you, council.
Thank you, Mr. Boswell.
Thank you.
That moves us to consideration of bids. We have none. And new business, we do have some. First item for new business is discussion regarding the amendment to the budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020 and ending June 30th, 2021. Mr. Steve Trotman.
Thank you, Mayor Webb, honorable council members. We've had some previous discussions on this before, but to make it official, to tee this up for your consideration at the next meeting. Before you is a draft of the amendment to the 2020-2021 budget. As you know, when the budget was presented and adopted last year, we were in the midst of the pandemic. And the federal government was in the process of issuing COVID relief for a number of, for citizens as well as businesses, tourism, and local governments. We were the recipients of CARES Act money that was administered through Washington County. And as a result, when the budget was adopted, I understand that the realization was that it would need to be amended at some point. but we needed to understand, first and foremost, how much money was going to be received by the town in order to offset a lot of COVID-related expenses, how those expenses would be allocated amongst the different departments. In conjunction with the COVID relief, there are a number of other things that occurred, one of which is that the small businesses in Abington have shown remarkable resilience and adaptation to the COVID. And so we had some unexpected, if you will, revenue streams from meals, lodging, and sales and use. I think at the time that the budget was first adopted, the expectation was that those revenue streams would be drastically reduced, which they were, but not to the extent that was originally anticipated. There was also, we took this time to reevaluate some of the classifications of how expenses had been recorded in the past, and so we've made some adjustments there as well. Bottom line is the proposed amendment to the general fund would increase revenues by $1,571,780 with associated expenditure increases as well, maintaining a balanced budget. On the capital improvement fund, an increase of $124,105, again, with corresponding increase in expenditures. On the VDOT Street Maintenance Fund, an increase of $917,667, again, with corresponding expenditure increase. And on the Sewer Fund, an increase of $543,176, again, with the associated expenditure increases as well. I would like to point out a few highlights of some of these changes so that you can consider these before we have the first reading and public hearing, which will take place at your next meeting on May 20th, okay? As I mentioned, the vast majority of these amendments has to do with the CARES Act, money that was received and expended throughout different departments for the town, as well as providing some relief to nonprofits in the area because it was, they were certainly impacted as much as we were as well. On the general fund, we did have a couple of extra grants that were not originally budgeted or anticipated. There was a Ctac recovery of costs for our police department. There was a grant from...
Can I jump in there real quick, Steve, and just for some of the council members who weren't here? The Ctac grant, before we adopted the budget, we were able to get 2 additional police officers, full-time, that would be fully paid for. It's actually state money coming through. Is it Department of Mental Health or? Behavioral Health, I'm sorry. And so we even knew when we passed the budget that we were gonna have to amend it for that, but I just wanted some of you that weren't here during the budget process to know that that was what the Ctac money was for, but it actually was state money to fund. We currently have 2 full-time officers that are serving at Ctac. So.
We also had a grant from DHCD that Tanya Triplett has been working on for the Faith in Action, putting meals out into the community and also helping the local restaurants. That was unanticipated. It's been a great benefit to the community. It's really been a win-win situation, and she's done a fantastic job in administering that program. Obviously, with the grant money coming in, there was associated expenses as well, and that's reflected in the amended budget. Also, we had some recovered costs that had not been anticipated before. As I mentioned to you before, the VDOT Street Maintenance Fund was adopted last year, and the way the revenue from VDOT was being recorded, half was going into the street fund and half was going into the general fund. I didn't feel that that was an appropriate way to monitor that, and so we've moved the other half to the appropriate spot, which is on the VDOT side. But the general fund will be able to recover some cost from VDOT for expenses that have been paid out of the general fund. And so that's why you'll see those changes with respect to some cost recovery. The miscellaneous revenue really has to do with the Hassinger House. It was anticipated that it might sell this year. It's not going to. By the end of this fiscal year, at least it's highly doubtful. And so therefore that has been removed. So that's a net reduction from the revenue. We did get the reduction, as I mentioned, from VDOT. That's the reduction from other agencies because we moved that out of the general fund and put it into the VDOT fund. Any questions on the changes for the general fund? Okay. On the capital improvement fund, there was additional money. During the construction process, there was some wastewater improvements done to the Meadows project. The expenses were actually taken out of the general fund, and they really should have been taken out of the sewer fund because that was work done by the wastewater, department. And so that money has now been reflected in the capital improvement as additional resources. It was already spent out to cover additional expenses with the Meadows. The VDOT Street Maintenance Fund, I just mentioned that before about how that was really transferred over from the general fund so that we can adequately track those expenses going forward. On the sewer fund, we had some CARES Act money, but when the budget was adopted last year, there was a large loan that was anticipated that was never taken out for any sewer capital improvements for this fiscal year. As I mentioned, the 124 that went to the Meadows for the sewer fund, there was also an additional $300 and something thousand that came out of the sewer fund. And so this budget reflects the sewer fund dipping into their reserves to cover the additional expenses. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay.
And what was the amount taken out of the sewer reserves?
What we're budgeting now is $520,893 coming out of the sewer reserves. And they have adequate reserves to cover that, and that is to be able to replenish and it's basically replenishing the general fund for the expenses that have been associated with the Meadows that really should have come out of the sewer fund to begin with. Okay. Again, this will be on the agenda for first reading and public hearing on May 20th. If you have any questions in the meantime, I'd be happy to answer them.
Appreciate you. And I said this last time, council, but really, Steve and Jimmy have done a great job. I'll give Steve more credit.
Yeah, give Steve credit since he's only been here 5 months.
But seriously, you've done a great job. I think things are very, they're explained in a very simplistic fashion, which is difficult sometimes for a budget, especially a
Right.
budget of our size. You've done a fantastic job, and I just have to
Well-
compliment you.
Well, I appreciate that, but again, I didn't do it on my own. I would like to give a shout out to Brenda Gregory in my office because she did a remarkable job on going through the fine details of how the CARES Act money was used and the different departments and how they used it. So she did the line item stuff. I just did the aggregate, so.
Tanya pulled a lot of weight in that too.
Yes, she
There you
did.
go, there you go.
Yes, she did.
But like I was saying, council, though, if you have questions, please reach out to Steve. He does a great job explaining things.
Be happy to.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that moves us to the discussion regarding change to traffic control configuration at the Virginia Creeper Trail Mead Drive intersection. Mr. Dew, we've been working on this one for quite some time, haven't we?
A little bit. Good afternoon, or good evening, Mayor, members of council. I'm here tonight to discuss proposed change in the traffic control configuration on the Virginia Creeper Trail at its intersection with Mead Drive. And the way everybody's looking away from me here, either something's wrong or there's something on the screen.
We're looking at it. No, we're looking at it.
I'm used to getting the averted look. But, anyway, yeah, what you see in front of you is the proposed change. I'm sure all of you are familiar, but I'll just give some background for those maybe in the public that aren't. At that particular crossing, when the subdivision at Mead Meadows was constructed back roughly about 20 years ago, there was, by the information I've got access to from council minutes, there was a committee put together called, I think it was the Virginia Creeper Trail Crossing Committee, very well named, and they took a look at this situation in particular and made a recommendation at that time for the developer to add and pay for and construct a signalized crossing at that location. So currently there's a traffic signal there that is, has 2 lights, not like the ones we're used to seeing with 3 lights, red, yellow, and green. This one just simply has red and green lights. And by default, the way it's currently set up, the traffic on Meade Drive has the red light and has to come to a stop. And then there are sensors in the pavement that sense the vehicle's there, and then they switch it over, reverse it to where the Meade Drive traffic gets a green light and the trail traffic gets red. So it's been in place for 20 years. I don't know, as far as accident history, I think it's minimal to none, although there have been quite a few reports over the years of near misses. Not surprising. I wouldn't say it's anything surprising or alarming, but a recent complaint or report of a near miss gave us another chance to take a fresh look at this intersection here. And in our study and analysis of this, I can clearly point out that it's not a typical trail and road crossing. I think you'll recognize that if you've been on anywhere else on the Creeper Trail and on any other trails that I'm aware of. Typically, the trail traffic must stop and yield to the traffic on the roadway. You know, I won't go into too much engineering detail unless you want it. I know Cam loves hearing the engineer minutia, but personally. But basically, as far as traffic signals and signage, anything involving traffic control, we do go by the Manual Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which is a document by the Federal Highway Administration. It's also adopted by Virginia Department of Transportation. And as for traffic signals, there are certain warrants to be met before you are supposed to put up a traffic signal. And in looking at the warrants, this location with the pedestrians and the traffic that we have out there in the situation, the narrow road width and the amount of traffic that goes through there, a traffic signal is not warranted. I can easily see how this came up when the development was being proposed and constructed, but in all honesty, from an engineering and traffic engineering standpoint, the signal is not warranted. So that started us in a fairly lengthy process of a lot of discussion internally, but we also talked with trail users, and we also involved the Virginia Creeper Trail Conservancy, and I participated in a couple of their meetings, which were done virtually because of COVID. But we had some really good, lively discussion about taking into consideration safety, the experience of the trail user, and the perspective or the situation for the traffic on Meade Drive. And after all this analysis and also taking into account the Manual Uniform Traffic Control Devices, my professional recommendation, and in the position I am in with the town, my proposal is to remove that traffic signal and put up traffic control, where the trail users will be the ones that have to stop and wait for clearance and then cross the trail. The Meade traffic will have the right-of-way, essentially. And in doing so, I think we accomplish a few things. I think we make it certainly more consistent with every other crossing that we have on the Creeper Trail. And again, like I said, like any other typical crossing or crosswalk, whereas the traffic typically has the right-of-way. Traffic does have to yield by state law if there is someone in the crosswalk. Okay. So my proposal, if you can make it out, I don't know how big it is, if you can make out everything on there, but my proposal involves increasing the signage on both Meade Drive and on the trail itself to more clearly show that assignment of right-of-way there where the trail traffic will stop, and also include the in-street pedestrian sign like we have at every other mid-block crosswalk in town. I think those signs are effective. You can tell how effective they are by how often they get hit and run over. It may be a bit of a sport, but I do think it offers a lot more visibility to crossings that may not be expected, especially by people that don't typically travel those roadways. In this situation here, again, I'll try to be brief if I haven't already overrun that, but this is a dead-end roadway that goes into Mead Meadows. Currently is a dead end, and I don't foresee it changing anytime in the near future. But very limited number of houses, which generate a low number of vehicles coming through there. Low speed limit. And I think then the crossing itself is only 2 lanes, which is not very much to accommodate there. So again, in my personal professional opinion, this is the most consistent crosswalk and traffic control configuration for the situation we have. I'm certainly open to any discussion and any questions you might have about it, or any concerns you might have about it.
I think, I mean, I live very close to this intersection, so I can see those lights flashing from time to time at night. Definitely the people living close by are gonna be pleased, just because they really are. Those lights are loud. I mean, they're just very, very bright, and particularly at night. And I think, as you all know, I mean, I'm out on the trail daily. I do think that will probably be the safest scenario in my personal opinion. You know, at all the other creeper crossings, like you say, the traffic has the right of way.
Right.
And the burden, of course, falls on the user of the trail. So that makes perfect sense to me, and I'm sure the neighborhood will thank you.
Well,
yeah, absolutely.
well, again, the reason I'm proposing it is consistency and safety. You know, those are the reasons that nothing else really factors into our recommendation other than those 2 things primarily. So, and I think it accomplishes those with the additional signage.
Do you guys have any questions for him specifically, or is that pretty?
Yeah, I got it. Sure. So where you have the stop signs, those will be for the people using the trail to stop?
Correct.
Like for bicyclists?
Yes, all the trail users, bicyclists, pedestrians, horseback riding, everyone on the trail will be required to stop there at the crossing.
I wanted to make a comment. John has obviously put a lot of time in this, and I think Tyler might have been involved at some point
Sure.
too. And I think with the light being there, there is a false sense of security, and that's a real danger. It's no different than I think going through a regular traffic signal. And I think because of the timing between the two, that was part of the issue. So I think this is a safer option, and they've put a lot of thought into it. And just wanted to, this is staff's recommendation. It's, I think, going to be the safest option. And hopefully we do it before. I mean, it's every time there's an accident or something happens, we always revisit it and say, well, let's take a look at it. Just like
Right.
we're looking at, the pedestrian crossings on Valley Street, because we're always concerned when we had that Barter crossing a couple years ago. We're hoping to maybe head off anything by addressing it now, as opposed to waiting till something happens.
And to expand on that a little bit, and what I said earlier about certain warrants in the manual uniform traffic control devices, not only is a signal not warranted in this situation, but the signal that's out there is not a standard signal. Like I mentioned earlier, it doesn't have the 3 different lights or phases, if you will, of stop or slow down and go. So, you could probably argue that having a non-standard signal out there offers up a certain liability or potential liability. But it's just another reason, in my opinion, that I think it's the best situation out there to remove it.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Okay. So what do you need from us? Our grace? Do we need to take action tonight, Cam?
No, we were discussing it tonight, I think. But
Okay. All right. So it will fall on the next scheduled meeting.
Ultimately, the council will have to pass an ordinance to allow this to take place and make people on the trail stop.
Per Code of Virginia, right?
Yeah.
Allows that.
Okay.
Allows us to do that.
All right.
Well,
Well, thank you. For
And
your
if
hard work.
you have any other questions in the meantime, certainly let me know, or concerns, if you hear anything from folks, I'd be more than happy to address any questions or concerns.
Absolutely.
can we put a suggestion box at the crossing?
That's further distraction, I think.
John, I was gonna ask if there's a standard in your book of how many seconds that the mayor can take off his mile time when he has to stop?
That's
Is
it.
that like
It's gonna destroy my traffic.
20 second
My
standard?
Strava's gonna be terrible.
Right. It's all about your safety, Mayor.
That's it.
So, yeah, all right, thank you all.
Thank you, John.
Thank
Well, I
you.
don't get up that far.
All right, so that brings us to the schedule. If everybody has their scheduler or their calendar handy, I think we wanted to go ahead and get an idea of the mid-month meetings or the work sessions, more affectionately known as the work sessions for July through December, for the rest of the year. Everybody got a calendar handy? And Kim, are you paying attention?
Yes, sir.
Start to write fast. All right, so we've got June scheduled already. And that puts us in July. Looks like our regular meeting will be on the 5th.
Are we gonna have it on the 5th? Since that's on my calendar, it says Independence Day observed.
Okay, that's a great question. I mean, historically, how have we done that, Kim? You,
We usually go to the following day.
so the 6th? Okay.
Yeah, 'cause that'll actually be a holiday for the
The 5th?
employees
Okay.
that day too, so it makes
Okay,
sense. if-
sure. So that makes perfect sense. So the 6th then will be our regularly scheduled meeting. Okay. And we're trying to keep them a couple of weeks apart.
20th or the 22nd.
I'm actually gonna be on vacation that week. Is anybody taking vacation during July?
Our vacation's the week of the 4th. So I will not be in town
Okay.
on the 6th.
Sure.
Sorry.
No, it's
You
okay.
took a vacation last year on the 4th too.
That's the week that's the only week that Todd Pillion will close his office, is the week of the 4th and the week between Christmas and New Year's.
All right. What about, that last, I know that puts us kinda close to the next meeting.
Well,
Which y'all
look,
can do,
here's the deal. It might not, I mean, if you are dead set on having you know, can we address it, you know, maybe later? Because, I mean, do we have to by code have the mid-month meeting?
No.
Can, okay.
No, we don't.
So, I mean, I guess the thought is, if we didn't have a mid-month meeting, that, you know, the budget's gonna be done,
Okay.
you know, it's the middle of summer, there might not be a need to. So
Okay.
unless you guys really think we need to, then, you know,
Let's not schedule a day in July.
Is
for
that
the
okay with
meeting.
everybody?
Yeah, that's
I
okay
mean,
with me, yeah.
okay, all right.
Yeah, and then if we have to, we'll schedule one and all that fun stuff. Okay. So moving along to August, it looks like the 2nd will be our regular meeting, correct? Okay. 2 weeks later, what about the 17th or the 18th for the mid-month meeting? 17th? 17th, anybody?
It's
That
good
work?
with me.
Work, okay. So the 17th, Tuesday, the 17th of August will be our, mid-month meeting. And that'll be at 2:30. Is that okay with everybody? All right. Moving to September. Again, the
It's a holiday.
6th is a holiday.
Yeah, that'd be Tuesday.
So the 7th, Tuesday, will that work for everybody? Okay. All right, and that puts us at about, what about the 23rd for a mid-month? That work for
It's good.
everybody? Okay,
2:30.
2:30. 23rd of September, 2:30. All right. Brings us to October. The 4th would be our regular meeting.
Are you gonna do that?
Oh, that's a great question. I may very well do that. That's the VML conference. Do we know, Kim, yet if the October one's gonna be in person or?
As far as I know, it is.
Okay.
And they're doing it on that day, is that the day they're doing it?
It's on the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th of October, so, I guess that puts us on the 6th, which is a Wednesday night, kinda unorthodox for,
And HPRB, y'all can
It'd be,
decide
yeah.
what else to do.
we'll just have to pull you out, HPRB. Is that all right?
I'd welcome that.
All right, so we're looking at October the 6th for our regular scheduled meeting. And then that puts us at about the 21st. My stomach's rumbling. 21st for our mid-month meeting at 2:30. All right, is that okay with everybody? Okay. So that's October 21st, mid-month at 2:30. November the 1st would be our regular scheduled meeting.
Do I have to come? It's my birthday.
Yes,
Okay.
we can have cupcakes if you want. Afterwards. That puts us at about the 18th. We don't want to get into a holiday week, I don't think, with the, so how about the 18th? That work?
Yeah, keep in mind if, when we get close to the
Yeah, we can
holidays,
schedule it for you too, sure.
or just if we don't feel there's a need to have a mid-month meeting, if there's no pressing business, we'll keep that option open.
Okay,
Certainly for
yeah.
December, I think.
Seems
that's
like December last year we canceled
I
it or
think we
didn't
did.
have one because there just wasn't enough on the
Yeah,
agenda.
November
so
might creep up and
Yeah.
we might need it, but
Yeah.
we'll leave that option open.
That works.
Yeah.
Then that puts us in December. The 6th is our regular meeting. And I personally think we ought to just hold off on the mid-month meeting because that puts us Christmas week, and I just don't think there's gonna be a whole lot going on Christmas
It's gonna be,
week.
I agree.
Is that okay with everybody?
yeah.
Okay. Kim, what else do you need from us?
That's it, sir.
Okay, excellent. All right. So don't have any old business on the schedule, or on the agenda. Do we have any miscellaneous business, for the town manager?
I don't have anything, unless anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer any. Tanya, wait,
Yeah, Tanya, come on.
one of our
Sure.
distinguished employees would like to approach the podium and speak before the council.
Thank you for allowing me. I just want to give you a little update on tourism. We do have part-time staff at the Virginia Creep Trail Welcome Center Friday and Saturday, 9 to 5, 1 to 5 on Sunday, and 9 to 1 on Monday.
Okay.
We are continuing to monitor the tourism website and update it. We are getting requests for visitor guides.
Great.
All of our analytics are up. Tanil and I are gonna do an detailed report, probably at the mid-month work session in May, but just wanna give you a little bit of update of what we are doing. We took, some Abingdon bags down today to the Virginia Welcome Center because the 2nd through the 8th is also Tourism Week. So we did that for Bristol. We sent bags to Lambsburg, which is the Virginia Welcome Center coming in off of 77 from North Carolina, and then to Rocky Gap as well, coming in on the Bluefield side. So we are continuing to do that. Because we have limited hours at the Visitor Center, we have spent some time really making sure that all the small businesses, restaurants, retailers, and hotels are well-stocked with brochures and maps of the Creeper Trail, self-guided walking tours, outdoor recreation, so that visitors can get those items wherever they are.
Excellent.
Guys have any questions or suggestions on things that we should be doing?
Questions for Tanya? Not right now. Thank you so much, yeah.
Thank you, Tanya.
And that brings us to council member reports. Council, does anybody have a report they'd like to make or anything they'd like to say? Well, I would personally like to take the time just to thank all of you all. It's a pleasure to work with you, really is. I'd also like to remind the general public that tomorrow is a special election. And certainly we'd like everybody to exercise their right to vote. So definitely come out. I think the polls are open here at the municipal building from 6 to 7, is that correct?
I believe it's
7 to
7 to 7.
7 to 7, I
yeah.
apologize. I saw something on social media today that said 6 to 7, so you may get somebody early, just FYI. But anyways, yeah, I encourage everybody that's a town resident to come out and vote. As I always say, if you don't get out and vote, you can't complain about what happens. Otherwise, things are going very well. Just thank you all for all your hard work. If there's nothing else, I don't think we have any appointments to boards and committees tonight, for a change. So the meeting is adjourned.
Oh, I wanted to say one thing.
Sure.
I forgot to mention that the pool is, the Coombs Center pool is on track to open on June 2nd. And
Fantastic.
that has been posted on social media, last week. I just didn't want to forget to mention that.
Sure,
I
sure,
forgot,
yeah.
so.
Yep.
Okay.
Have gotten a lot of questions
Yeah.
about the pool at the rec center, and that will be open if nothing happens June the 2nd. Excellent, excellent. All right, if there's nothing else, meeting is